A high school student accidentally travels into the world of a novel, becoming a cannon fodder female supporting character who dies at the beginning. How can she break the deadlock and reverse her predetermined fate? Today, we bring you a transmigration series. Why Raeliana ended up at the Duke's mansion. The female protagonist in her previous life was named Raeliana Macmillan, a senior in her third year of high school. After finally getting into her dream university, she was suddenly pushed down the stairs by a mysterious person. When she woke up again, she had entered the novel's world, becoming the cannon fodder female character, Raeliana. Her original parents were healthy, and her sister was also very cute. Because they were involved in the oil business, they were very wealthy, becoming a newly elevated baronial family. Such a life of glory and wealth would make anyone laugh in their dreams, but Raeliana couldn't laugh at all, because she was the cannon fodder female character who was poisoned by her fiancé and died tragically at a young age. Her fiancé, named French, planned to swindle the oil business from her parents after killing the original character, and was eventually exposed by the protagonist who returned from studying abroad. Now, Raeliana's life was at stake, and she couldn't just sit back and wait for death. However, French's family was a prestigious noble family, and this marriage contract was not something she could easily dissolve if she wanted to. So, in order to achieve her goal, Raeliana bought a book on how to break up and studied it carefully. No matter how she humiliated French, or even aimed a gun at him, he just smiled and didn't take it seriously. Eventually, Raeliana confessed her thoughts, stating that she did not like him. Hearing this, French suddenly laughed and told Raeliana that her family was just nouveau riche and had no right to dissolve the marriage contract. So, no matter what, she would have to marry him. This despicable attitude disgusted Raeliana, and she wished she could find an opportunity to get rid of him. Just then, she met the original male protagonist, also a duke of the country named Knight. Now, with capitalism thriving in the kingdom, the old nobility, in order to prevent merchants from crossing class boundaries and becoming the new nobility, thus undermining their interests, specifically issued a decree prohibiting the sale of titles. However, the imperial seal needed to enact the law had been stolen and its whereabouts were unknown. Thus, to suppress the new nobility, the old nobility pushed Knight to the forefront. Suddenly, an idea flashed in Raeliana's mind, thinking that if it were the duke, he might be able to stop French. After making up her mind, Raeliana got up and followed him. This was her first meeting with the male protagonist. Although he was handsome and well-mannered, she knew the original story too well. This person was actually a devil. She told Knight that she came to make a deal because she knew the whereabouts of the imperial seal. Meanwhile, on the other side, French was called away by a person named Jake, who threatened him to keep Raeliana close, or else he would suffer. Since French was in Jake's hands, he had to obey. He originally thought Raeliana was easy to manipulate, but recently she seemed like a completely different person, which made him very angry. When he came to the garden to find Raeliana, he happened to interrupt their conversation. Seeing this, Raeliana stepped forward and grabbed Knight, falsely claiming that they had already communicated their intentions. Knight, for the sake of the imperial seal, also played along very cooperatively, even stopping French's violent actions when he was about to make a move. French left in a fury, stating that he wouldn't let go easily. After he left, Knight instructed his subordinates to conduct a detailed investigation on Raeliana. In addition, they were to keep a close watch on French and deal with any suspicious actions immediately. The next day, Raeliana was woken up by a maid, but after a night of heavy drinking, she really didn't want to get up. Then she heard from the maid that her parents were not at home, and that she, as the eldest daughter, had to receive the uninvited duke. Both of them wore social smiles on their faces, and to those unaware, it seemed as if they were truly involved. However, Knight's visit this time implicitly showed his stance, which was good news for Raeliana. So, she immediately went to the bookstore to buy a book on contract law, preparing the groundwork for signing a cooperation agreement. That evening, when her parents learned of the duke's visit, they asked Raeliana what was going on. Raeliana candidly told them that she did not like French, and that her previous agreement to engage him was only for the family's benefit. But now, she only wanted to be with the person she loved. She thought her parents would disagree, but to her surprise, they quickly consented and were relieved that she had her own thoughts. This made Raeliana feel complicated, as she was not their real daughter. The next day, she went to the duke's mansion to negotiate, and told Knight that the jade seal sought by the old nobility was actually in his hands, because he outwardly supported the old nobility but was secretly the king's right-hand man. To Raeliana's surprise, despite her straightforwardness, Win Knight still played dumb and even told her to leave, not to waste her own time. Just as she was troubled, she suddenly remembered the chessboard in the room and immediately pointed out that it symbolized the current situation of the kingdom. Raeliana's sudden remark piqued Win Knight's interest, and he decided to make a deal with her. Seeing the contract draft stated that they would pretend to be fiancés and nothing else, Win Knight was puzzled and asked her why. Seeing him persistently inquire, Raeliana couldn't reveal it was because of the plot, and could only tell him she had heard rumors of French wanting to kill her, from the same source as the Jade Seal. Win Knight was still curious about the source of the information, but Raeliana was already quite impatient, stating that if he refused to cooperate, she would sell the information to his political enemies. However, Win Knight was not worried at all, since those people were very suspicious and would not believe such baseless rumors. Raeliana urged him not to haggle anymore, to sign now and part ways in 6 months, and she would never appear before him again. Win Knight promptly signed the contract, but during this ongoing drama, if he needed Raeliana's cooperation, she had to comply. Soon after, French's family publicly condemned Raeliana for breaking off the engagement and demanded a huge amount of compensation. In addition, Win Knight sent Adam to be her personal knight. Officially, it was for her safety, but in reality, he was there to monitor her. However, Adam was also a male supporting character in the original story. Previously, when the kingdom had a child soldier policy, Adam was one of them. After the policy was abolished and he had nowhere to go, Win Knight took him in, and he became a confidant of the Duke. Due to his childhood experiences, he was taciturn, and Raeliana, trying to make conversation, found him barely able to utter a word, which made her quite frustrated. The maid was very concerned about Raeliana's safety, because of Adam's notorious nickname as Death, and those ominous red eyes that seemed ready to kill at any moment. But Raeliana said Adam was a national hero, and told the maid not to judge a book by its cover. Later, in the garden, her sister brought her blessings, hoping she would have a harmonious marriage with the Duke. But the wish balloon got stuck in the tree branches. Her sister was very sad, thinking that the gods would not hear her wishes if it continued like this. Just then, Adam suddenly cut off the branch, and seeing the balloon rise, her sister cheered up and gave him some chocolate as a thank you. Seeing Adam react differently than usual, Raeliana asked if he liked sweets. Receiving an affirmative answer, she suddenly found Adam very cute and stuffed a bag of chocolates into his hands, asking him to take good care of her from now on because she had promised Win Knight to undergo bride training at the Duke's house. So, not long after, Raeliana said goodbye to her family and moved into the Duke's mansion. She didn't expect that the first lesson upon arrival was a detailed introduction to the mansion by the butler, from the layout to the vases, almost as if he was going to go over the Duke's family tree in detail. This made Raeliana return to her room and couldn't help but wonder if the bed she was sleeping on was also an antique, only to hear a voice say, "Don't worry, that bed isn't." To her surprise, it was Win Knight who had come uninvited into her room, which in modern times would have landed him in jail for a few days. Talking about the compensation demanded by French, Win Knight teased Raeliana for her poor taste in men. Raeliana smiled and asked, "If it wasn't bad, would I have chosen you as a partner?" But since things had come to this point, there was no turning back, so Raeliana asked Win Knight who else knew about the contract. Wanting to prepare her statements in advance, Win Knight said that besides them, only Adam and another person knew, leading Raeliana to guess that this person must be the Duke's trusted adjutant. To play the part of a couple, Raeliana asked Win Knight to call her by her name. But when it was her turn, she couldn't bring herself to do it. Win Knight, cunning as he was, insisted until she did it, frustrating Raeliana so much that she threw a pillow in anger. Win Knight, watching from outside the door, found this very amusing and asked Adam what he thought of her. Adam said Raeliana was a strange person, which surprised Win Knight because for Adam, this was quite a compliment. In the following days, Raeliana underwent various training sessions in the mansion. Fortunately, the original owner's body had muscle memory, which made it not too difficult for her. However, the difference in class meant a difference in education level, and mathematics was a major challenge for the original owner. But for Raeliana, who had just finished her college entrance exams before transmigrating. It was very easy. Other than being a bit boring, it was quite relaxed for her. While Raeliana was sitting by the window daydreaming, Knight suddenly came over with a bouquet of roses and asked her why she was working so hard on her bride training when they had agreed to be a contract couple. Raeliana wished she could smash the flowers in his face. Couldn't she just love learning? Besides, there was nothing else to do here but study. Hearing this, Knight asked her to accompany him to a ball that evening to announce their engagement, and he had already arranged the engagement ceremony for next week. Raeliana was annoyed by his unilateral decisions but felt helpless. Just as she was getting ready, Knight called someone in. He was named Nick, a makeup artist. Under his skilled hands, Raeliana was transformed. Not only were her dark circles gone, but her skin was as smooth as a porcelain doll's. Just like that, the two became good friends. However, Nick told Raeliana that smiling is very important in social situations. Among them, the Knight's smile is very famous. It's the kind of smile that looks cheerful on the face but is full of disdain inside. Nick thinks this is not good, so he customized a smile for Raeliana. The essence of it is when seeing someone you dislike, it captures the complex feeling of wanting to kill them but needing to remain polite. Subconsciously, Raeliana thought of French and instantly mastered the knack for it. As evening arrived, Raeliana stepped out of her room and asked Adam if it looked good. Seeing him silent, she wasn't surprised at all. She turned and left with the butler without knowing that Adam was actually stunned. Knight's reaction was also subtle. Seeing Raeliana's elaborate dress, he got up and left without saying a word. Raeliana was speechless. Was he even too lazy to make small talk? But the butler said he was just shy. Raeliana absolutely didn't believe it. She thought this reason was terrible. She would rather believe that Knight was just too lazy to talk. Soon, they arrived at the ball in a carriage. Before even entering, Knight warned Raeliana not to stray from his sight for more than 5 minutes. Looking back, she saw a group of knights following them, which left her speechless. How paranoid could this man be? Upon entering the venue, they immediately became the center of attention. Many men came over to invite Raeliana to dance, but Knight blocked them all. Everyone thought he was jealous, but only Raeliana knew that this man was pretending to be affectionate. Knight then invited Raeliana to dance. Watching the two whirl around the dance floor, the crowd felt they were a perfect match. Little did they know, the seemingly harmonious atmosphere was actually filled with tension. It was a kind of tit-for-tat where if you insult me, I'll step on your foot. However, in the end, Knight was more skilled and finished the dance with a difficult move, successfully defeating Raeliana. At the same time, the subtle glances from around them made Raeliana uneasy, but there were too many people at the ball to tell who was watching her. Then, a red-haired woman appeared at the venue. She was called Vivian, the villainess from the original story, who, after being rejected by Knight, spitefully accepted the king's proposal to become the sole queen candidate and also the biggest stumbling block in the love story of the female lead in Knight. But now, Knight's fiancé was her, Raeliana. Wasn't this bound to target her? Just as Raeliana was about to slip away, Knight suddenly stopped her. It was said that the ladies of the old nobility had a private gathering which could even shake the nation. So, he asked Raeliana to approach Vivian and Lady Freeze, the Marchioness, to get an invitation to the gathering. Raeliana accepted the task, stating that by doing so, Knight would owe her a favor, which she would definitely claim back later. This no-loss character amused Knight greatly. Taking advantage of Freeze leaving the crowd, Raeliana, carrying a glass of wine, walked over and pretended to bump into her, spilling wine on Freeze's hand and using this as an excuse to invite her to wash up. Unexpectedly, Vivian followed, blocking her attempt to take Freeze away while slyly mocking her lower status compared to Vivian's nobility. If she didn't mock back, it would be too humiliating. You mock my low status, I mock your inability to grasp a man's heart. Even if you like Knight, at least for now, he is my man. Vivian secretly cursed Raeliana for not knowing humility, but Raeliana simply retorted, saying that it was a new era where humility was not needed. In other words, calling Vivian an old antique. As the two confronted each other, Freeze was at a loss on the side. At this moment, Nick suddenly appeared. As a man, he didn't care about maintaining a ladylike demeanor and directly scolded Vivian as an annoying vixen, successfully drawing her hatred away. Raeliana realized that Nick was helping her out of the situation and gave him a high five like a good buddy. She quickly took Freeze to wash her hands. Seeing the knights who had followed from afar, Freeze was very resistant. Raeliana noticed this and asked Adam and the others to go back first, leaving only Ensley, a female knight. In the room, Raeliana's considerate and gentle manner made Freeze feel secure. She had only recently arrived in the capital and was following Vivian to break into the capital's social circle sooner. Learning that Raeliana also wanted to interact with the ladies but couldn't find a proper channel, Freeze invited her to a gathering. Raeliana secretly cheered in her heart, thinking that after completing the task, she must make Knight properly thank her. Unexpectedly, as soon as she opened the door, the room was engulfed in thick smoke. At the same time, a shadow appeared, who used a handkerchief to knock Raeliana unconscious and take her away. This person was none other than her former fiancé, French. Although French belonged to a prestigious family with a long history, they were only famous without much money. Therefore, French often deceived women to take money from them. As a result, he encountered a Yandere who threatened to commit suicide if he dared to break up. French intended to stop her but accidentally killed her instead. The woman's brother, Jake, used this to blackmail him into engaging with Raeliana to swindle the Baron's fortune. For his future, French had no choice but to agree. On the other side, Raeliana woke up from her unconscious state, feeling utterly helpless as neither heaven nor earth responded to her calls. She threatened Jake that if he killed her here, he would not get a penny. However, Jake did not care and drew a dagger, aiming it at her face. Raeliana was furious inside but had to bow her head under the roof. Later, when Jake mentioned his sister's situation, Raeliana thought he might have some conscience and tried to persuade him to turn back. But this man was only interested in money, and his sister's death meant nothing to him. Just then, the carriage wheel broke, giving Raeliana a chance to attack French and then jump from the carriage to escape into the woods. She didn't understand why she was so unlucky to have died and been transmigrated, and now people were constantly trying to harm her. Regardless, she was determined to survive. Raeliana tore her dress to find an escape route. Just as dawn was breaking, a hand suddenly reached out from behind. It was Adam. Raeliana breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, Jake also caught up. Facing such an enemy, Adam didn't plan to hold back and could send him to his death with just one word from Raeliana. But Jake clearly knew that Raeliana, with her personality, would not dare to kill casually. Although he was destitute, as a noble, he would at most be imprisoned for a few years if caught. At that moment, Jake pulled out a bottle and sprinkled a secret potion on Adam's sleeve that could lure monsters. The next second, a huge monster appeared, pushing Raeliana to the edge of a cliff, and she accidentally fell off. In that instant, Raeliana recalled the despair of being pushed down the stairs in her previous life. Raeliana thought she was going to die this time, but surprisingly, Knight caught her. Seeing him drenched in sweat, she knew how worried he had been. Raeliana urged him to go and save Adam, but Knight wasn't worried at all. The next second, the huge monster fell to the ground, thoroughly dead. Raeliana's pupils trembled in shock. How could such a tough guy be killed like this? At the same time, other knights arrived and captured Jake, who was trying to flee. Knight ordered the knights to search the forest, and soon they spotted French. Hearing this, Raeliana took Knight's gun and fired several shots at French, approaching him step by step like a villain. "Run, weren't you capable just a moment ago?" A bullet hit right in front of French's crotch, and Knight and the others behind him were stunned. They hadn't expected Raeliana, who usually seemed so gentle, to be so fierce. On the way back, the two shared a ride. Although Knight's comments were often unpleasant, Raeliana was still grateful for his rescue. As she fell asleep leaning on him, Knight felt very confused about his feelings for Raeliana. The thought of her getting hurt made him furious. So, he ordered that after Adam returned, Jake and the other man should be dealt with immediately. The next day, Raeliana woke up to find herself not only sore but also lying next to an undressed Knight, which terrified her. She quickly asked about what happened last night, but to her surprise, Knight said that she had been very forward. Raeliana got out of bed to leave, but when she opened the door, she saw Adam standing there and pitifully asked for help. However, Knight ordered Adam to bring her over. The next second, Adam jumped out the window, and Knight was furious. He couldn't believe that Adam, who usually obeyed him, dared to elope with his woman. Just then, the butler came to inform him that the Earl was visiting. Knight said he had no time for guests and told them to leave the way they came. He then called the knights to capture Adam, who had eloped with Raeliana. The butler thought Knight was being childish but could only agree without expressing his opinion. Meanwhile, Raeliana wanted to take a bath, so Adam took her to the maid's exclusive bathroom. After bathing, she changed into a maid's uniform, which made her unrecognizable. Hearing that Adam was hungry, Raeliana decided to get some food from the kitchen. Unbeknownst to her, the news of her elopement with Adam was already known throughout the estate. The head chef, thinking that Win Knight would be jealous, caught Raeliana in the act as she was about to take some bread. She claimed she was a new maid and had come to the kitchen because her mistress was hungry. The chef believed her and even prepared a chocolate fondue for her. Raeliana used this to bribe Adam for a quiet place. Thinking that no one would come to the study, she decided to find a book to read but ran into the male second lead, the Earl. Upon learning that Raeliana had taught herself the complex and obscure Krypton language, the Earl excitedly took her hand and invited her to join the academy. Suddenly, Wink Knight's mocking voice about her attire came, and Raeliana angrily called Win Knight a pervert, telling him to stay away from her. Win Knight knew why she was angry and explained that it was all a misunderstanding and that he had done nothing. Raeliana's back pain was purely because she had fallen asleep on horseback the previous day. Seeing Win Knight sincerely apologizing, Raeliana did not want to entangle with him in such an awkward manner. Just as she was about to leave, she was suddenly pulled back. Win Knight unexpectedly kissed the back of her hand, causing her to blush with shyness. She asked him, "What are you doing? Why are you so skilled at seduction?" Unable to resist, Raeliana blushed, forgave him, and hurriedly left. The Earl, who had been watching, was dumbfounded, seriously suspecting that Win Knight had taken the wrong medicine. If not, it could only mean that Win Knight had truly fallen for Raeliana. Hearing that their daughter had almost been kidnapped, the Baron and his wife visited the Duke's mansion to offer their comfort. Win Knight assured them that there would be no next time. Jake and another person were thrown into the kingdom's most secure prison, never to be released in their lifetimes.